can only mean one thing. Leader in the back. Tony Messenger, St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist. Good morning, Tony Messenger.
Good morning. What's happening?
Oh, what's happening?
Hey, Tony.
There's lots.
Is Kelly getting a little crazy this morning? What's going on?
Yeah, you know, all that caffeine.
I believe she is getting jiggy with it, but I'm not sure.
Getting jiggy.
All right, Tony Messenger, looks like we're going to be talking about this stadium TIF financing here for a while. Your newspaper doing a great job on reporting many of this. I guess the MLS group and Eric Greitens' group met. The interesting thing out of that article was that Dave Peacock was quoted as saying, hey, thought we were on the same page with Governor-elect Greitens, and his people responded by saying, not so much. So seems like there's two different conversations going on with this.
I think perhaps they were talking to different people. One of the things that I have found so far about Governor-elect Greitens is that he keeps things close to the vest. And he's got a very tight circle around him. And there was a period of time, for instance, in which I was talking to somebody who was relatively close to him, who was indicating to me, oh, yeah, you're going to get an interview, you're going to get an interview, you're going to get an interview. And then when it got, close to the election, it was pretty clear, no, you're not going to get an interview. And, I was talking to somebody relatively close to him, but obviously not close enough. And perhaps that is what happened to the soccer folks as well, because I know in talking to them previously, they thought that they had somewhat of an understanding with the governor-elect, that they weren't necessarily on the same page, but that he wasn't going to jump up and down and stand in their way too much. And the welfare for millionaires quote really sort of changed things. I look at the statement that came out of the meeting yesterday, and I see at least a little bit of a nuanced tone coming out of the governor's office. And so I don't think it's dead yet. I still think I wrote yesterday that the soccer stadium, I think particularly in light of what's going on with Scottrade, is maybe a little bit more on life support. But I don't think it's dead yet.
Well, they got to move fast because they got to put it on the April ballot so that the people can vote on it. So they don't have a whole lot of time to wait on this.
I don't necessarily accept that timeline, and here's why. The deadline that matters is January 31st. They need to file their application with the league, with the MLS, and say, we're St. Louis, we're the ownership group you like, you've already accepted us, we've got the $150 million, we're working on some deals here, we're your next team. And if they can convince the league that the state and the city are going to play ball in the near future, then they got themselves, I think, the next franchise. I don't think there's any doubt that in the league's mind, St. Louis is in the lead in terms of being one of the next cities that gets awarded a franchise. The MLS and the MLS's very wealthy owners want to come to St. Louis. They want a team here. They want this market. They know that this market is primed for soccer. They want this market for when TV contracts start to grow a little bit in soccer, as they will eventually. And so January 31st is the real deadline. I know they want to have a vote by April. I know they'd love to have the state money in hand by then. I'm not sure that's necessary if they think the wheels are greased for them to eventually get what they're looking for.
Tony, they're asking $40 million from the state. Now, I know, again, it's different pools of money, but somebody spent $17 million trying to get the Rams to build a stadium. If Greitens says no, can they come up with that $40 million some other place?
I think they can. I think the question is whether or not they want to. They're a relatively large investment group. This isn't just one wealthy guy like Paul Allen writing a check. This is a group of wealthy folks at various relative levels of wealth that are pooling their money for this team. They could expand their investment pool. I have no doubt that they could do that. Question is whether or not they want to, because then it ultimately dilutes each of the profits they're eventually going to make when the value of the team rises. So I think they can come up with the money. The question is what do they believe is a reasonable business proposition before they walk away? And right now they think they need $40 million from the state. I don't think that's a hard number. And I think what they probably told Governor-elect Brightons yesterday is, look, we need that site prepared. That's what we need. And that site has to be prepared, as Governor Nixon previously said, whether it's for a soccer stadium or an office building or whatever eventually goes there for economic development.
Mm-hmm. Somebody got to him. Somebody got to Tony. Tony, are you still there? We lost contact with you, Tony. Houston, we have a problem. I will finish his thought. Tony, you there?
Really?
That it needs to get rid of because it's not going to use it anymore.
Yeah.
So the state has a responsibility to redevelop that land for economic development purposes, even if it has nothing to do theoretically with the stadium.
Yeah, it's a great point, and you cut out. But your point was basically for the state owns that land. It's got to be set up to be redeveloped. Somebody has to invest something to get it ready to be developed. So regardless of a MLS stadium or some other project that you're not going to give TIF money to, that site needs to be redeveloped or fixed so that somebody can come along and turn it into profitable ground.
Right, and it is quite reasonable and possible for the state to set up a situation where it spends its money cleaning up that ground and preparing it and says with a straight face, we didn't spend any money on the stadium.
Right, yeah. But then, of course, you have the story of this morning in your fine newspaper that says that, 4 St. Louis projects are getting $51 million in new tax increment financing. And, not a peep out of the governor-elect. So it seems like, he's picking on the MLS group, but not some of these other developers.
I think that is, and I'm working on a column related to that is ultimately going to be the new governor's challenge. And it's been a challenge for previous governors, both Democrat and Republican, in terms of how they pick winners and losers and decide when they believe in tax credits and when they don't. When it comes right down to it, when a big project comes your way and the economic development math says this is a good investment, it's awfully hard for a governor to say, nope, I don't believe in welfare for millionaires. I do in this case, but I don't in that case. I don't believe that the new governor is going to be just consistently opposed to all economic development projects that involve incentives. I just don't believe that's possible in today's day and age.
It'll be interesting. Tony, have a good day. Drive safe, and we'll read all about it at stltoday.com. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks a lot.
Contributor here at the Big 550 KTRS Tuesdays and Thursdays and all the time at stltoday.com. 827 Big 550.